I definitely really like NatureChlor. It did everything it said that it would.
The sun is coming up, are you ready to go?
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm really excited because you know how much I love using hypochlorous acid for cleaning. If you haven't seen the video, I'll link it below. I used a machine called Force of Nature to make hypochlorous acid, and it is like such a safe cleaner. They say that it's like up to 100 times more powerful than bleach, but like completely safe. Like you just use salt, vinegar, water, and electricity to like electrolyze the water, and it makes hypochlorous acid. And they use it in vet care, wound care. You can use it for disinfecting and sanitizing. So if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it down below and you can watch it. But what I'm really excited about was there's another company that is creating like the devices that make hypochlorous acid, and I actually contacted them and asked if they would send me one, and I could like create a little video for you guys. So they were so nice, like so nice to work with. So they did send me a device. I'm really excited. It came in this little box, and so it has like some like general instructions here, a little bit more detail here, and the brand is NatureChlor. So, and I think like the company is Controlomatic, and they make like larger devices, I think, for companies, but they also make just like smaller ones for people. So they have like the NatureChlor, NatureChlor Plus, and then the NatureChlor Max for like if you want to make a larger amount. So I have just like the little one here, and it just came in this little box, and it looks like this, and this is it. So it's pretty simple device, which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, maybe the more simple, the longer it will last. And I'm gonna go ahead and give it a try today. So I'm really excited. It comes with this. It also came with the power cord here as well. And so this part is safe to get wet up until like here. So obviously you wouldn't want to get this wet, but in general, like, I mean, in the jar I'm using, it only goes, I can't remember, it might only go up to here. So it really doesn't get that wet. And then obviously you don't want to get this one wet at all. So it came with that, but this is kind of cool too. So you know that I make my own salt, water, vinegar like mixture. Like I guess the capsules that you used to have to buy for Force of Nature, they have vinegar and salt in them, right? And so I make my own, but because of that, I've always had to use chlorine strips. Well, with this company, you don't have to buy capsules. Like you can just use your salt and vinegar to make your own solution. So they do include some chlorine indicator strips, which are really awesome. And it goes up to 300 parts per million, which is plenty. Because really for cleaning, you want like about 200 parts per million. So that's perfect. And this brand too, like I love this brand. And then also just some like cheap pH strips. So nothing super spectacular about these, but those are perfect for pH. So the pH strips are going to tell you what percentage of like, what basic percentage of hypochlorous acid you're making. You want it to be about 5.5 pH. And then this is going to tell you the strength of it. So parts per million, because it says chlorine indicator strips, this will tell you how strong your solution is. So we want 200 and 5.5 pH, and I will be thrilled. So we're gonna go ahead and give this a try. I'm super excited to give it a try. Okay, two things before we get started. First, if you could please subscribe to my channel, that would be super helpful. And the other thing too, I forgot to mention, is that you can also use it to make potassium hydroxide, which is supposed to be like a super powerful degreaser, which is great using it on stoves, ovens, or grills. That's also a great thing to use it as well. So instead of using salt, you would replace it with potassium carbonate or carbonate. I don't know if it's a long A or a short A, but anyways, potassium carbonate. I can link that down below too. I actually have some. I bought some to use with the Force of Nature, but I don't have a lot of experience with it. So you can make it, and it is easy using the NatureChlor, but I just don't have a lot of experience with it yet. But I know a lot of people really like using it as a degreaser. So that's kind of cool that it gives you that option as well. All right, let's go ahead and measure things out and test our pH and see how things are going. All right, so it's super nice that it already comes with like all the strips that you need to measure everything. I'm gonna go ahead and just quickly open these pH strips and take a look at what my starting pH is, because this will kind of help you to know how much vinegar to use, because my pH I think is a little bit high. So let's go ahead and take a look here. And then here on the strips, it tells you like the scale. So let's take a look. Okay, so if we look, my starting pH is about a 7. So hopefully you can see that. It's kind of hard, but anyways, my starting pH is about a 7. Probably maybe even between a 7 and an 8, to be honest. All right, so it says that your pH should be 7 or less, but we know that like to get the best results, we're gonna want our pH to be ending at about 5.5. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some vinegar to this to bring my pH down. All right, and then I have my white vinegar here. It's just a 5% acidity white vinegar, which is just like your standard typical vinegar. I'm gonna add it to like a little cup because we don't need very much. It says to only use a 1/4 teaspoon, but I'm gonna check my pH and see where that brings us, because I have a feeling I'm going to be, whoa, I just spilled it. I have a feeling I'm going to be needing to add more. But I have my salt here, and don't forget that you need to be using pure salt. You don't want the salt that has like any kind of additives. And if you look at the ingredients, it really should just say salt, because a lot of salts have different things added to them. So you may just want to get like a lot of kosher salts don't, not all, but some do. Pickling salt, a lot of people will use like the pickling salt as well. All right, let's see here. We need, oh, this is kind of hard. Usually I use like a smaller container, but I ran out of it. Okay, so here is my 1 teaspoon of salt going in. Oh no, 1 teaspoon, oh my goodness. This is a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna go ahead and mix that up and make sure it's nice and dissolved. All right, so let's go ahead and check the pH. I added the 1/4 teaspoon of vinegar, and we are gonna take a look here. Okay, it looks like it did bring it down a little bit, but it's still pretty close to 7. And I have a feeling after we run it, it's gonna be really close to 7 or maybe even 8. So I'm gonna run it as it says, because these are the instructions that it comes with. And then I may make a second batch and add a little bit extra vinegar and see if I can get closer to that perfect 5.5 pH that we're looking for after running the device. Okay, so I ran into a little problem here, and I really probably didn't think this through very well, but my container here is just a little bit too small. So you're supposed to do 1 quart, and this is 1 quart, but up to like the rim. So I'm gonna obviously need to invest in a little bit of a larger container to do this in. So I'm gonna go ahead and I took some out. I think it'll be fine to run it this way, but I definitely do wanna upgrade to a little bit of a larger container. And then we're gonna go ahead and run it. So this needs to run for 15 minutes. Okay, I'm taking a look here. I wonder how well you'll be able to see this on camera. Oh yeah, there we go, okay. If you look, hopefully you can see they're starting to do the little bubbles. I think those larger bubbles may also just be like the water filling into like the crevices of the device. But it's definitely working. So this device takes 15 minutes to run. So I'm gonna go ahead and set a timer because it doesn't come with a timer on it. So I'll set my timer, and then we're gonna go ahead and check pH and the chlorine parts per million and take a look and see what we got. Let's take a look. I already unplugged it. As soon as the 15 minutes went off, I unplugged it. And we're gonna go ahead and separate it here and then move this out of the way to make sure I don't get any water on it. And then, or I should say any hypochlorous acid, right? Or any liquid. All right, so you can see, like, I don't know if you can tell, but there's some water in here. So I'm just gonna really carefully try to drain that out before I take this out. There we go. All right, perfect. All right, let's take a look and see what we have. Let's go ahead and measure the concentration. And we have, all right. Okay, look at that. It is really close to 200. It might be right in between, to be honest, because it almost looks like, it's hard to tell, but it almost looks like a little bit light and then a little bit dark on the bottom. Interesting. So we may need to just run it for a few more minutes or add just the slightest bit more of salt. So, all right, so that's step 1. And step 2, let's do the pH. Okay, pH. Okay, so it looks like pH is probably about 6.5, which is probably what it was before I ran it. So, yeah, it's pretty close to 7. It's probably between 7 and 6, so maybe about 6.5. So with that being said, 6.5, I would use this, no problem. I would have no hesitations about using this, but because I have the strips and I have a little bit of experience doing this, I probably would add just a little bit more vinegar before running it next time to bring the pH down a little bit. I think I might just bring the pH down to 5.5 because I don't think it really raised in pH very much after running it. With the Force of Nature, I bring it down to a 4.5 and it ends at 5.5. But on this, I'm thinking I need to start at 5.5 and end at 5.5. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this again really quick with a second version and see how it goes. Ethan's with me. Say hi.
Hi.
All right, so I just want to talk really quickly about fine-tuning your hypochlorous acid. So as you can see, when I ran it the first time, the pH was just a little bit higher than what I aimed for. It was probably about a 6.5. I would use that. In fact, I did use that without any hesitation. But because I know that I can fine-tune that, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of vinegar. So we know that people have different pHs in their water, whether they're using reverse osmosis water, maybe they're using purified water, maybe they're just using regular tap water. And my tap water tends to be a little bit high. My tap water tends to be a little bit high in the pH. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit extra vinegar. So depending on your starting pH, you may need to make just a slight adjustment if you really want to aim for that like exact 5.5 kind of sweet spot for your hypochlorous acid. But honestly, with just using the directions as it was, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of vinegar, I'm happy with the results and I totally would use it. All right, let's go ahead and I'll show you how I adjusted it for my pH.
Bye.
All right, here is version 2. I'm gonna go ahead and add my 1/4 teaspoon of salt and my vinegar. And for this time, I'm gonna use, let's try 2 1/4 teaspoons, which I guess is a 1/2 teaspoon, right? Okay, so here's 1, here's 2. Let me mix that up and check the pH. This is good because it also shows you the process that you can go to if you really want to try to fine tune your hypochlorous acid. What I made was hypochlorous acid and it would be totally fine to use, but I don't know, I like to be able to be as precise as possible. All right, you can tell this definitely is more yellowish orange colored than it was before. So this is really good. I would even say this is really close to, wow, this may even be really close to 5 and 6. I don't know, I think this is perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. Just a 1/2 teaspoon of vinegar for my water. And I'm gonna go ahead and run this for 15 minutes and we'll check it. All right, so this is version number 2. Remember, I added an extra 1/4 teaspoon of vinegar. I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out and take a look at what we get for the pH. There we go, all right. Okay, so again, I am gonna measure the concentration, which is the parts per million. I am getting definitely 200 parts per million, so that looks good. And we'll grab a pH strip and see what our pH is. Oh yeah, this looks really good. I added a lot of water, so it's getting kind of floppy, but all right, it looks like, yeah, it looks like it's probably right in that 5 and 6 range, which I think is perfect. So again, you may need to just check your pH a little bit before you run it, and maybe add just even a tiny bit more vinegar if you want to try to and achieve like that perfect pH, ending pH. I definitely really like NatureChlor. It did everything it said that it would. It's very simple to use, no problems there. I love being able to use my own salt and vinegar because you obviously save a lot of money instead of buying capsules. I would say the biggest drawbacks, which aren't really much, is that you do need a container. So I do need to go invest in like a little bit of a larger container because mine was just slightly too small. And then the other thing was that when you're pulling it out, you have to be a little bit careful when you're pulling it out so that you don't like get the hypochlorous acid all over your counter, which if you do, it's not the end of the world. You just wipe it up. But it is a little bit tricky to kind of like have it drain out really well before pulling it out. But you saw me do it. It wasn't really that difficult. So again, these drawbacks are so minor. Overall, I'm really, really happy with the product. I love it. Super excited to use it. I was thinking, and there's a few other things that are really, really nice about it as well. So when I'm making my DIY solution with Force of Nature, I have to use my scale to measure the salt and the vinegar. It takes a little bit longer. I love being able to just pull out the teaspoon and just quickly, or the quarter teaspoon, I should say, and just quickly put that together. So that is a huge plus and a time saver. I actually really, really prefer that. And less things that you need on hand. Most people have a quarter teaspoon sitting at home for baking. So that's really, really handy. And the other thing that I really liked as well is that it came with the strips for measuring both the free available chlorine as well as measuring the pH. So honestly, like I got the kit, I was ready to go. I already had salt, vinegar, and really the only thing I guess you need is a container that would fit the liquid into it. And that's something I will need to invest in. And also stay tuned because I do want to do a comparison video between the Force of Nature and the NatureChlor. We're going to break down price. We're going to break down time, like how long it takes to run it. All those things, we're going to do a side-by-side of the two. So keep your eyes open for that as well. And don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss that video and all my future videos. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.